Charles, sometimes these titles come up and I wonder, why has it taken us this long to come up with such a great and obvious title? 16 might be a low count, but thank you for joining me from your remote location, Charles. And we're here today to enumerate the scandals.
Well, thanks so much. And before we get into this, I just want to give a brief word, as I did in the case of Clarissa. I'm in a foreign country, having attended a memorial service for a wonderful human being who passed away on February 27th at age 73, way too soon. His name is David McGrath, and the eulogy was incredible. I had no idea that he had moved at age 25 to this country I'm in. I'm not going to say which it is. And basically lived really in a wonderful place, operating at a very high level with so many friends, many of whom actually made special effort to be at the memorial service yesterday. And to see the love and outpouring show up for this person was gratifying. On the other hand, what a sadness that he's no longer with us. Among his many claims to fame, and some people probably could make a business out of this. His closest friend was Sean Connery, with whom I spent a lot of time, thanks to David. So miss both of them, and I just wanted to report that that's why I'm out of the country.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, Charles, for joining us despite that fact. The other thing I want to tell people about is that charlesortel.substack.com is live now, and new content is arriving on there. People who have not yet subscribed can go to charlesortel.substack.com. You can choose either to become a paid subscriber or subscribe to the free content. Charles has just begun to put material on there. And Charles, do you want to tell anybody, do you want to tell everybody anything about your plans for the False Philanthropy Substack page?
Yes, thank you very much, Jason. And thanks to my free and paid subscribers. Inshallah, as they say, not necessarily here, but in other parts of the world, I should be able to add a new posting for free subscribers later today. And the first paid one is going to go out on Tuesday when I return, when I'm fully back inside the United States of America. Just a brief commercial on it. The approach I'm taking here is very different than approaches other journalists or other writers take. The admonition in the Substack page says to keep it very short and pithy. And instead, what I'm doing here is providing the type of analysis that I used to do in my life as a banker, where at summary level, it may seem awfully specific to people who've never looked at a finance-related paper, but really it's just general in the free stuff, and the paid stuff will be highly specific. And the goal here is to share this information widely. The title for the next one is called Art of the Steal, and it's the first very in-depth written presentation that I'll put on Substack regarding an entity that passes itself off as a lawfully organized and operated U.S. tax-exempt public charity. That's a specific type of charity called variously, quote, Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. And before that, William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, then the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, then the William J. Clinton Foundation, and then William J. Clinton Foundation. I'm going to take the uninitiated through all the many reasons why I said back in May of 2016 that this was the largest unprosecuted charity fraud in the world. And indeed, what I'm going to try to explain to people is that I think the whole political dynamic from 2015 to the present has in part pushed the very important contest between those on the left, so-called progressives, and those on the right, conservatives, for power and control of the American polity. in this country, it has almost become an evil thing to say that you are chasing profit. You have these goombas in government looking down their nose on those of us who chase profit and who tend to believe that nonprofits are virtuous. When in reality, what I've been able to see, contrasting the supposed activities of the Bill Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation and its predecessors with something like a for-profit entity like General Electric Corporation, it is quite possible in both spheres, in the for-profit and the not-for-profit sphere, to engage in loathsome activities, if not vile and even murderous activities in the world of nonprofits. And unlike the for-profit world, where there are so many people participating in it with a stake, an axe to grind, many people, anyone in the for-profit world, if he or she invests in a publicly traded company, wants to make money off that investment. So those people tend to care pretty much about whether or not the entity exists, produces a real profit, has real audited financial results that are accurate or close to accurate. In contrast, in the not-for-profit world, it seems to me that the regulators inside the US and around the world are purposefully gamed. That is to say, they don't have the resources to really dig into the type of detail that's required to figure out whether something supposedly based in Arkansas has the legal right to operate around the world, as the Clinton Foundation claims that it has done starting around 2001. Also, in contrast to the for-profit world, actually the public information that's available concerning nonprofits is gigantic, because most US states separately regulate charities and require them to make public filings that anybody can access. And then across the world, depending on where you are, there are very stiff requirements, reporting requirements, legal requirements to operate a charity. You can think about that a little bit if you remember that in Russia, Vladimir Putin became concerned that American charities were being operated to subvert his government. So he kicked most of them out of Russia. Across the developing world, and actually in the economically advanced world as well, there can be very stiff charitable requirements on reporting for charities, because the concern is that what charities are actually doing is claiming that they're doing something in a far off place in the world where there's no regulation, and instead diverting, which is a kind way of saying stealing, money that's sent towards the charity for obnoxious purposes, whether it be, in the case of the Clintons, funding at least two expensive mansions and a private jet and caviar lifestyle for the family, or, as I suspect, taking money that was sent towards these charities to help defray the cost of the vast political machine that the Clintons run various places around the world, pursuing what I would argue is unregulated globalism inside and outside the US, and trying to advance inside the US the political campaigns of candidates they favor. So I've been working on this with you, Jason, for years, and independently now since February of 2015, which is 8 years. And to date, we have yet to trigger any formal, effective, and far-reaching government investigations of these fake charities. That needs to change, which is why I set up False Philanthropy. And what I intend to do with that is just barrel along, putting this information out into the public domain. And what people can do more than anything else, if they like what we're doing, you and I, and in this False Philanthropy, is they can tell their friends about it and encourage them to look at the free subscriptions. With that, you should get as much information as you need just having the free subscription. But if you're like me and you love to get into details, you're going to want to get into the paid subscription, and because there'll be a lot more information there, a lot more analysis there, that maybe some of which you couldn't do yourself. So what I'm hoping for is that the weight of public opinion will grow, as it has begun to grow in the years that you and I have been doing Sunday with Charles, Closing In, and you've been doing Crowdsource the Truth. I think when we started, very few people, including myself, were as cynical as they need to be when they consider what passes as government-sponsored fact.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back, you and I were talking earlier today offline about the fact that so much of the work we've done together is work that comes way before the mainstream press catches on. And as such, I would argue that the essential value of what you do and what I do with you is that you're not necessarily seeing the future, but if you watch our shows, you're going to learn about important stories way before the mainstream corporate-owned media talks about them, if they ever bother to do so. And that,
Yeah.
to me, I think should have value and should be worth paying for. And I hope people do subscribe to it. In contrast, I was trying to watch the Trump interviews with Tucker, and I noticed, and I should have guessed this, that when they put up, Tucker's on in theory for 60 minutes, his YouTube presentations, excluding station breaks and commercials, run to exactly 40 minutes, which means that 1/3 of the time you spend watching Fox News is fundamentally wasted
Pillows.
because you're watching, ads for cars for kids or some other Fox show or some ridiculous My Pillow thing or, who knows what. Whereas the virtue of doing what you do and the format that you do and now that we do together is that there are no commercial interruptions by third parties. And we tend to stay very focused. And beyond that, you and I tend to, and I think your other hosts as well, tend to put out information as well as links to the supporting facts so that you, the viewers, can become engaged in what we're doing. And you can argue knowledgeably with people who are sucked in by the mainstream produced and government funded hysteria around the world. So that's a brief commercial. I do really appreciate those who are subscribing both on a free and paid basis. And not only do I hope that more come along, but I also think it's important that the various people who subscribe to Crowdsource the Truth in all the different formats, that audience widens. Because when we first started, we were up at a very high level of subscribers. And I think as we got closer and closer to the heart of the corruption, and it's uniparty corruption, it's not just Republican corruption, it's rhinos, Republicans in name only. We've extensively discussed the fake American Conservative Union Foundation and the fake American Conservative Union. It's obviously corrupt presidential families, especially including the Bush, Clinton, Biden, and Obama families, but it runs well beyond that. And if you really want to get smart and get into the news, you've got to do a lot of work yourselves. And so I hope that what we're doing will help you in that effort.
Absolutely, Charles. Well said. So I think people are going to be sure to subscribe to charlesortel.substack.com. And Charles, it's interesting. I've just noticed something. We've looked at this Breitbart article that you published in March of 2015 many, many times. And, there's really great value. It's tricky because repetition can become boring and lose your audience, but there is great value in going over this ground again. And I'm reminded that there is a large team of individuals who want to destroy the legacy of work that everybody who's appeared on Crowdsource the Truth has helped to create. I think they want to do that because by denying everyone the continuity of information, particularly, laid out in the organized way, staying there, published on the date it was published so you can correlate it to other things, etc. They want to do that. They want to disrupt every piece of information that we've laid down. But what I've just realized right now, after almost 7 years of working together on the same topic, in 2015, you begin talking about Eric Braverman. Now, I never heard about Eric Braverman until it was mentioned to me by a tall dope who people will recall I collaborated with for a short while. And he set up the first interview with you. And he was talking about Eric Braverman. It's interesting, Charles, because in the 6 or 7 years since that all happened, I have learned that this tall guy seems to associate himself with very important stories and then get in there and kind of crap all over it so that any sensible person looks at it and says, well, this looks like a crap-filled mess. And it causes me to wonder, Charles, did your initiative, by bringing people's attention to this individual, did this trigger contact by George Webb to try to get you off of this story? So it seems like it might have.
But, yeah. Well, what's interesting that you should bring that up, because today it's funny, I'm in a nice warm climate. I should be outdoors. I haven't been outdoors all day because I've been typing away in my hotel room with the shades drawn, as they now are, so I won't be distracted by the view. But in doing that, to try to chase down some important details for the free edition that I hope to publish later today, I ran across an email that I had sent to Peter Smith, I think it was, to Peter Smith on April 16th, 2017. And it's very clear from that email that he was quite interested in continuing to work with me actively on the process of getting, by that point, getting to the Obama Foundation and warning them that they were off course and in dangerous territory because Trump had just been elected and was in power. Of course, on April 16th, Comey was not, and Mueller was not yet in the flow trying to go after Trump. But my message to Peter on that date, on April 16th, was, and in the last conversation I had with him, really shortly before his death, which may have been the last telephone conversation that he had with anyone right before his death, was to say that while we both loathed Obama's economic policies in particular, we both felt, and I still feel, that Barack Obama is an historic figure and that therefore his presidential library should be a proper one, that it should be organized exactly in conformity with applicable state, federal, and foreign laws. And I was talking to Peter at that time because he claimed to know two trustees of the Obama Foundation about his going to see those trustees, and my offering by Peter to explain to those trustees why I thought they were making a grievous error with the foundation that needed to be corrected. So similarly, on Braverman, I worked with Peter to get a message. He had some friends at the Yale Corporation, and I worked with him to get a message via the Yale Corporation, which is the board of trustees of the university, to Braverman, saying, listen, dude, you're a Yale graduate, won a lot of prizes, you're a Yale Law School graduate, you're teaching courses at Yale, having spent time as, quote, the CEO of the Clinton Foundation. You have got to come forward and explain why you took the job, what you found when you took the job, and why you left so suddenly early in 2015, shortly after the fake, I would argue, returns for the Clinton Foundation with respect to 2013 were audited, signed off by the auditors, and filed. You've got to explain why you did that.
Charles, I'm sorry. I'm starting to interrupt, but I was not watching the clock and we're out of time. We've got to continue our conversation in the First Amendment forum. And it's actually good timing because we've got a lot of sensitive stuff to discuss like this. I think we're on to something really important. So I hope that people will join us right now on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, and crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. The sponsor-exclusive shows are not yet available to subscribers on charlesortel.substack.com, but we can talk about that possibility in the future. For now, I hope that people will join us. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.